You're listening to Seminary Dropout, and I'm your host, Shane Blackshear. Somewhere in between seminary and youth camp, it's Seminary Dropout. Let's go. Hey everybody. You may have noticed that our pre-decided time for sponsorship with didocs.org has come to an end. We wish them well. Perhaps they'll be back. And I just want to let you know that Seminary Dropout is open up for new sponsorships. I've already got a few emails from people interested in this. But if you're interested in advertising your nonprofit, your startup, that you think fits with the audience of Seminary Dropout, let me know. It would also be a great opportunity for an event maybe that you're hosting, a conference, something like that. So if you're interested in that, send me an email, shane@shaneblackshear.com. I would love to talk with you about that. Now, today's interview is with Romal Tune and Tony Kriz. This was live from the Faith and Culture Writers Conference in Portland that I went to a few weeks back. I had a fantastic time, and I would really encourage you, if you're a blogger, a writer, anything in the media space of faith, this would be a fantastic conference for you to go to. So I really encourage you to go next year. I had a blast. The people that put it on did a fantastic job. And the audio is a little bit different than normal because we were in front of a live audience, because it was live face-to-face. And I'm trying to get a little bit better at that, but I don't do it very often. But it's still great, and I hope you enjoy. Here you go. Live from the Faith and Culture Conference of 2015 from the campus of Warner Pacific College, it's Seminary Dropout.
All right.
With me today is my guest, Romal Tune.
Hey.
Romal, thanks for being with us.
Oh, man, thanks for having me on. It's my first podcast.
Your first podcast, you chose the best, says the host of the podcast. So you've been talking this weekend a little bit about your story. I'm wondering if you can describe the neighborhood in which you grew up.
Oh, man, so I can describe the neighborhoods. They all had similarities. It's always funny when people say, so where'd you grow up? And I'm like, the Bay Area, because I can't name just one neighborhood because I lived everywhere.
You moved around a lot?
Every year I went to a different school from kindergarten until 11th grade.
Yeah. Why was that?
Eviction.
Okay.
Poverty.
Yeah.
When the money runs out or the job doesn't work out for my mom, we had to move. And then with her addiction, we had less money. Well, I won't get into the whole story, but at one point things got really good for us. Mm-hmm. And then she had a substance abuse challenge, and then things fell apart.
Yeah.
But, so I lived in San Francisco and Hunters Point. I lived in the Mission District. I lived in West Oakland. I lived in Vallejo and the Crest. And that's where my grandparents were. So.
Okay, in the Crest? Is that what you called
Vallejo.
it? In Vallejo, okay.
So I lived in San Francisco, Oakland.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I grew up an only child, but I have 3 brothers. My dad, when he remarried on the East Coast, I have 3 brothers, Jason, Corey, and Shannon.
Cool.
Yeah.
You went to Howard University. What was that like?
Man, college after the military wasn't like the typical college experience. Like, being in the Army, I partied way better than any college kid ever did.
Sure.
But it was really cool. It was different. But I showed up kind of really focused on education, so I didn't get to party as much as I probably should have.
Yeah. You mentioned in one of the sessions earlier today, your disbelief before you knew about Howard that there was such thing as an all-black college.
Yeah, man. Growing up in California, we don't have black colleges. They're typically in the South or on the East Coast. And if nobody's in your neighborhood is going to college, there's no reason to mention any of them other than the ones with good basketball teams. So we knew Duke, UCLA, all the typical schools had good athletics. And my girlfriend was like, yeah, so I'm going to this all-black college. And I'm like, yeah, no such thing. Like
just making stuff up.
Their mascot's a unicorn,
You
right?
said you thought she was just using an excuse to break up with you.
I really did. I was like, so stop lying to me. Just tell me you want to break up. But there's no such thing as a black college.
But a black college is a little far-fetched.
It was
what you're saying.
Far-fetched from where I was from. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like I said, their mascot must be a unicorn at this black college. And then I went to visit, and I was like, oh my God, wow,
What was it like going from, the military, which in my mind, the military is a fairly diverse place. Is that fair?
It is. The military is a microcosm of society.
Yeah.
Everything that you find in society, you find in the military.
Less segregated than real life?
No, it's lived out very segregated still.
In the military?
Yeah, people hang out with
Really?
people who look like them.
Yeah.
You have some different dynamics because you go to basic training with people who are different cultures and come up from different economic backgrounds.
Okay.
Typically, if you're enlisted, the highest economic background is lower middle.
Okay.
Because anyone with more money probably had a chance to go to college, and so they're going to be officers.
Yeah. Was it jarring going from the military to Howard? Just culture?
Yeah, because it was all black college, and I had not done that. And I grew up in California, so it's pretty diverse. And in San Francisco, it's like, it's
Sure.
whosoever will, let them come. So Howard was different. I'd never been around a college campus of Black people getting an education and serious about getting a degree. And my whole focus was on, I have to do well here, because if I don't do well in college, I'm going back to the hood. And I'm so not going back to the hood. So I got to do well.
Did you always have that drive?
No, I was quite lazy as a teenager. And I just wasn't ambitious. When you don't know what you want to do with your life, you'll accept pretty much anything that's offered to you because you have no sense of direction, and you'll try it all. So I didn't have much purpose. And as a result, I took risk with my life because I didn't know the value of my life and the value of my purpose. But when you know that, you don't take risk with your life and your purpose. So it took a while to figure that out.
What was there an inciting moment? What changed?
It's been an evolving process. The first time I was told I was smart was a math teacher in the 9th grade. I never heard it before nor after. I got in the military. I became soldier to cycle in basic training, which is the honor graduate. And the drill sergeant said, "Tune, you're really smart, but you have absolutely no military bearing," which means attitude and life.
Okay.
Right. I was like, wow, he said I was smart. And then I graduated top of my class in my MOS. And people just kept telling me, man, if you get your attitude together, you're actually smart. You could do some things. And I started believing them because it became evidence-based in my performance. And then I went to see kids at this college, and I was like, wow, they're not smarter than me. I thought kids in college were smarter than me. These cats are not smarter than me. I make way better drinks. So I started going to night school, man, and had a 3.8 GPA, transferred. Next thing you know, 4 years later, Magna Cum Laude graduate.
And you came to faith kind of later, not say later in life, like 25 as an old man. Like, you didn't grow up in church.
Never went outside of funerals. I went maybe twice that wasn't a funeral.
Yeah.
And then the second time, the kids saw me getting off the, church bus, which is a minivan. It didn't look cool. You can't do that good. So, put some rims on it or something. But they laughed at me. And I was like, I'm not going back.
Never again.
It was too embarrassing.
So what happened at 25?
I had a girlfriend who went to church.
Yeah.
And she said, look, I go to church. If you want to date me, you got to go to church. So I was like, whatever it takes.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah.
Were you at Howard at the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Different girlfriend. First girlfriend.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah.
So you started going to church, and then
Man, I was going to church with her, and then I joined church. I became a Christian, and I had these roommates from college who were still living together. We used to throw house parties to raise the rent. And we were called Neckbone Productions because, like, when you hear a nice beat, you kind of nod your neckbone, right? So I became a Christian, and I was like, I can't live here anymore. Like, this place I can't do it with any integrity. Yeah. So I moved out and lived on another friend's couch and started going to Bible studies and reading. And then they started inviting me to teach, and fell in love with ministry, although I was preparing for medical school. I was a clinical research associate when I graduated, preparing for med school. My dream was to go to Johns Hopkins.
So did you think, in your head at the time, you were thinking, I'm going to go to med school, I'm going to do something in the medical field, but with this ministry thing, kind of put a pin in it? Is that what your thought was?
Nah, man.
Or did you think, like, I'm just going to be a good, like, lay person and, volunteer in my church? Or
jumped all in? No.
Yeah.
My roommate, Larry Sampson, who's been to South Africa with me, we've been friends for 20 years now. When I moved out of that apartment, I went to church, and after Bible study, told him I needed to find a place to live. And he said, you can live with me under one condition. You can sleep on the couch. You don't have to pay rent, but you have to go out and feed the homeless every Monday night. Because he was over the homeless ministry.
Okay.
And I would go out and hang out in the park at night with them. See, the church was like, feeding the homeless didn't mean we talked to and engaged the homeless. It means we hand them sandwiches and tea and blankets and we go. So
Sure.
I would like sit out there and hold conversations, and they were like,
that's not how you do it.
We don't do all that.
Yeah.
But I love that part. And so one day at my desk at Boehringer Mannheim Pharmaceuticals, I'm working on a phase 3 pharmaceutical study and preparing a Bible study lesson. And I was like, I love this church thing. I would be a good doctor, but I love this. And that was my call in ministry moment.
They're both very like lucrative,
Absolutely.
vocations.
Yeah, I told my family, because, from the hood, everybody always thought I was going to be this professional athlete. Okay. Because I was good track and good at basketball. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be a preacher. They were like, oh, we're stuck now. So they were like, we're never getting out the hood. You're going to be a preacher. What are we going to do with that? But, I still feel like in some ways, physicians are about the work of healing. And I feel like that's what my ministry is about. So in a very real sense, I'm still doing it.
We just heard you speak twice, and that's kind of what you do now. And I'm curious if you remember when the first time that you realized that you were gifted at public speaking.
I still don't realize it. I really don't. And I'm glad I don't, because I don't ever want to feel like I'm so good, it's about me. And I know if I ever do that, I'm going to fail.
So there's humility about it.
It's being conscious, intentionally conscious of the fact that this is not about me. I think that's very important for me. I remember working in a church once that was very performance driven, and everything was a competition. And I hated ministry then, because everything was who got the most applause, who sold the most CDs, and that's who was rated good and better and best. And it was a lot of pressure. And I didn't like ministry then. But I bought into this performance trap and got really good at the performance. And I think for many years, I had this light beer type of preaching, tastes great, less filling. Yeah. That was just like off Broadway. And I don't know what happened, but I got to a point where I just wanted to be authentic and be who I really am when I get up to speak, and let God use just my personality, my demeanor, my voice, rather than putting on a show. And that I have seen has made a tremendous difference in the impact on the word, on lives of people.
You see people react differently to those different styles.
And not only the reaction, but their implementation of what's been said. See, performance-driven ministry can evoke an emotional response that's momentary and not long-standing. But relevant, practical word will have people come to me later or inbox me and say, I'm in rehab, or I'm in counseling, or my son is in Bible study, or my daughter's no longer cutting herself, or our whole family's going to count. See, that is different from somebody just saying, oh, you were good.
It seems like we're in this, the second scenario where people are just in the moment, they're moved or whatever. When those same people get into trouble, whether it's like the situation you're talking about, they're in addiction or jail or whatever. It's like when they think back to the first guy who just made them feel emotional, it's as if they realize he had nothing for me. But when you're, being honest, when you're being transparent, like you said, that's the person people think of when they're in the real jams of life.
Yeah, man. It's the stories, the book of Revelation, I forget which chapters, it says, they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the power of their testimony. So our stories, to me, are the fresh wind of new gospels, narratives of miracles. And so we kind of are unfair to people when we don't share our testimonies, because that's the new, fresh evidence that God is still performing miracles, right? Through the miracles he's performed in our lives. And so that's why we have to tell our testimonies and align them with scripture. But that way scripture is fresh and doesn't just seem like these old stories, right? It's like, no, here's what God did in my life. That was really a miracle. And all of us have different types of miracles.
And in a postmodern context, it seems like stories are like the last thing that people respect. You know, like you can say, you know, Jesus is Lord, and we believe that. And people are like, well, that's great for you. But you know what I mean? Like you can throw out your facts if you want, but if you tell their story, it's like there's a deep respect for that still.
Yeah, man. People buy into people. And the only way you really build relationship is through narratives, through telling stories, right? Through that vulnerability, right? And it's a risk. So it's easy to look at the Bible and see other people tell their story because it's been written down, and so we get to expose all their stuff, right? But what about yours? Like, what did God do for you? Like, what was your mess that God had to clean up? And when we've allowed, it's easy to tell our testimony when we know we've been healed and we're no longer ashamed. We know we're still holding on to shame when we're like, I can't talk about it. It's like, no, there's no condemnation. So we have to figure out how to be courageous enough to share what God has done in our lives, because that saves lives.
You know, now you write, you've written a book, you're working on your second, and you speak. Was that a natural extension of being in ministry?
Writing the book and the speaking?
Well, just what you do now, what you call, you know, your ministry of writing, speaking. Was that birthed out of your working at the church?
Nah.
Or completely, you feel like completely separate?
Totally separate.
Yeah.
So the book came about after I actually walked away from church.
Really?
Yeah. And had to have that encounter with God without interruption, and where I had no one else to listen to but the voice of God, and to wrestle with me. And through that process, the book came about. The speaking has just been it's been new. 2 years ago, I was speaking maybe 3-4 times a year. Now I'm speaking 3 weeks a month for the past 16 months. And now internationally with that. But that and it's all word of mouth. People are always thinking there's a speaker's agency. I'm like,
sure,
no, word of mouth and social media. And it's just being courageous enough to say yes, even when I'm afraid, and then figuring it out. You know, you get invited to a place and they're like, oh, you know, we're going to have an audience of 18,000 and we're renting a stadium. And my brain is like, oh no, like, that's like an epic flunk. Like, what if I fail in front of 18,000 people, right? So my mind wants to say no, tell them no. But I've learned through therapy and stuff, just say yes and figure it out. And once I say yes, I'm committed. You know, my word is my bond. And then I'm like, I got to show up, man. I got it. And when I show up, it's not about me. It's about making sure I'm trying to discern the needs of the people in this room, because this is about them. And I don't want anyone to leave here feeling the wrong way about their relationship with God. And I think that happened for me, man, just real honestly. When I was at the church, I was over pastoral care and outreach, and I had to preach all the funerals. And if the pastor didn't preach them, I had to do all the bereavement visits. And I learned so much about relationship and connection and story just by listening to people talk about the deceased, and then have to align those stories with scripture so that I didn't feel like it didn't sound like I didn't know the person. But I remember one time, it was a Sunday, you know, this church, we did church really, really well. It was one of the best performances you're going to see. Awesome music, you know, lights, cameras, action. It was off Broadway at its finest. And a lady that week after one of those Sundays killed herself.
Oh my goodness.
I saw her in church.
Oh my gosh.
And I couldn't help but think, where did we fail? How did she come to worship? Hear the music, sing some of those songs, hear the sermon preached, and still walk away saying, I don't want to live. What did we do wrong? We were entertaining, and that is unacceptable. She didn't need entertainment. She needed a word from the Lord. And I had to preach that funeral, and I didn't know that she had committed suicide until her brother came to me. He sent me money a week later after that funeral and said, you have no idea what your words meant to us. She had committed suicide. And I was just like, no more fun and games. We got to stop just making this a performance. Like, people die.
Yeah. Was that a pretty large church that you were a part of?
10,000 member church.
Yeah. That's when you have a revelation like that, it seems like that is a large blimp to turn around. You know what I mean?
Pastor, turn around just meant walk away.
Right. Well, that's and that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And there are economic implications there.
Sure.
There's a lot on the line with that. But, you got to make hard decisions sometimes. And these are people, this is not a game.
People who are looking for something.
And this is the one place that's supposed to be different. We are the only institution that exists in the world solely to love people. No other institution, no nonprofit, no corporation, no one else exists solely for the purpose of love other than us.
Yeah.
So when we do not love, we've failed. We can put on a great performance. We can fill a room. We can raise a lot of money. But if we are not loving, we're still failing because other people can do community engagement better than us. Other people can do it because they care better than us. United Way Worldwide is good at just helping people.
Sure.
But they can't say we do it because we love people. That's us.
Right.
We win when we love.
The book you wrote, God's Graffiti, it's audience especially for teenagers, correct? No.
So there's a little politics in there. My publisher wanted that niche market.
Okay.
We wrestled to get to the title that we agreed on, which was God's Graffiti. We, publishing battles. We agreed that, okay, that title was cool. But then when we got to subtitle, I think we wanted God's word written on your life.
Okay.
And they were like, well, you're using God twice. And we were like, okay. But we want a youth market. And we felt like the subtitle would have broadened our audience because if you read the book, it resonates with teen and adult.
Sure.
And I get a lot of adults who have come to me and said that this book is helping them heal the wounded child in them because of how I approach the biblical stories and then sharing my story.
Yeah.
And so it's not just for teenagers. It's for anyone looking to find relevance in 8 different biblical leaders and seeing how they overcame the challenges in their families and communities in order to be great leaders.
Do you still find yourself speaking in front of teenagers a lot?
It's maybe a 60-40, 60 adult, 40 teenager. Okay. I have a couple of events next year I have booked are probably the largest teenage events I've ever done. They're like 3,000, 3,500 kids, one in North Carolina, one in South Carolina. The adult venues are typically that big. But then I'll show up, man. I went to Milwaukee once. The guy was like, hey, we really can't afford you. We can get you here. It ain't going to be a great hotel. And we got a little bit of money, but we really have some kids who need to hear you. Yeah. And I looked them up and I showed up. It was about those kids, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And no one shows up for them. And so I was that kid.
Yeah.
So I had to show up for them,
What's your message to kids like that?
Man, it's kind of the same as here, but it's a little more, I lean in more to the love part of it and purpose and believing in you. And I know you've been hurt, but you're going to be okay. And I came here just to let you know the only reason I'm here is because of you, because I know you need to know that you're going to be okay. And I just lean into that with them, man, because it's a developmental part of their lives. And there's an opportunity to make a really big difference. And words do matter.
Beautiful. Romal, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast.
Man, thank you for having me, my first podcast. I really appreciate being on the Dropout. This has been awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
Making his third appearance on the show, Tony Kriz.
Did I give you my business card?
Well, Tony, thanks for being with me. Third time. You're in the Third Timers Club alone, but
yeah, I'm like the Justin Timberlake of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, to my Jimmy Fallon.
So something. Okay.
Right? Off the highway.
Oh, off the highway. Mm-hmm. Just want to go right there.
Yeah. You
want to be a guest?
Where did you? This is my elaborate way to say, can I come? Well, no, I was going to ask, where did you come up with the idea of interviewing Christian writers and leaders and stuff like that? It's just a real original idea.
So Off the Highway is short form video casting. I produce 3 episodes a week, every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday.
Yeah.
They're usually live about between 7 and 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And each week, basically, I get on a side-by-side video cast with some Christian thinker, leader, not even Christian, actually. Thought.
Yeah, that's right. Because you've had, who's the
Tom
guy?
Cratton-Maker, and there's more.
And I love that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a 3 to 5 minute video cast on one question. I ask one question that's sort of a question that no one's sort of willing to ask to somebody who has particular expertise in that field or a take.
Yeah.
And it came from really the problem with wanting to be sort of a purveyor of thought in this really noisy world. Mm-hmm. It's hard, you're doing it, it's hard to find a space. It's hard to sort of take ground on the risk board of voices, that's going on in society. And as I looked around, one thing that I just didn't see very much of, at least in the realm of faith, was this short form video, one question. Yet, if you were to go on an entertainment website, there'd be a ton of those. If you were to go on a sports website, there'd be a ton of those. Matter of fact, True Hoop with Henry Abbott does this really great. They do like 1 or 2 episodes a week. They're 3 to 6 minutes long. It's one question. And actually, that was the one I sort of saw what they were doing. I'm like, boy, that would be a great format for faith and questions of culture. And, we're probably 50 episodes in right now.
Yeah. When you're doing 3 a week, it piles up pretty quick.
Yeah. It's pretty fun.
You plan on that being ongoing?
I want to do it. Yeah. I want to do it as long as it works.
It's hard to sustain.
It is, but it's nice because I record 4 to 5 episodes at a time.
With the same person?
Yeah. So when I get somebody on Skype,
gotcha.
We just bang through 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah.
So
and you can spread them out.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Great. Cool. Let's talk about aloof.
All right.
You have the audacity to say that God is aloof. And then you say that God is a donkey and a wolverine and a mime.
Yeah.
Tony, why do you hate love?
I do. I hate love. Romal loves love. And I
but
hate
you,
love.
on the other hand, this is a very yin-yang episode.
That's why we're good back to back.
That's right. That's right. Here's a real question.
All right.
Can you describe a time in your life when you felt like God was silent?
Yeah, 99.5% of the time. God is totally silent. And a lot of people really bristle at saying that. I can't tell you the hate emails I get. And when I say that, I'm not... it's like, yes, I can open my Bible and I can find the words of God there. Yes, I can go out and I can bask under a tree and I can experience God the way that Romans 1 talks about. I'm not saying those things are not true. What I'm saying is that, first of all, I was made to be a visceral and sensory and tangible being. It's almost impossible for me to envision relationship without the ability, to touch and to see and to hear a voice and to smell your body odor. Seriously, that is the context of relationship. And God completely has the capacity to do that. 100%. And those same people want to tell me I need to go read my Bible. I go, you need to read yours, because there are scenes where God does show up that way for people, that viscerally, that tangibly, in that sensory of a way. And God chooses 99.99% of the time to not do that. That is a choice by God. I don't think I'm saying anything that's particularly scandalous. I'm just saying what's going on. The problem, in my estimation, of why I wrote the book, is I think a lot of pulpits and books and worship songs try to pretend like God's just my best friend holding my hand, walking alongside me every day. I hear his voice all the time. It's unbelievable how close God is, how tangible. God's my best friend, the closest person I have in my life, the most tangible person in my life. And I think that's a load of bullshit. And what it's doing is it's casting this illusion of what meeting with God is like. Mm-hmm. And then if I go home and I'm having the 99.9% experience where God is not holding my hand and touching me, and I hear your voice in the sort of worship songs and sermons that are, there's pastors every week who say, God spoke to me this week and told me to tell you. God spoke to me. What kind of expectation does that put in a parishioner who goes home and God never speaks to them, at least in a way that they can fathom or sort of figure out? Mm-hmm. And so then they're left with one of two choices. God has rejected me. I'm not one of God's special people. And so I'm just going to chuck the faith, or I'm just going to choose to pretend because I don't want to be left out of the cool kid table.
Right.
And so I think most, and I'm going to say this prophetically, I think most, like 90% plus of Christians, at least in the West, are pretending. I think they're faking their faith. And it's super sad.
Do you think, and not in a shame-based way, and not in a performance way either, but do we share in some culpability for that of not hearing from God more? Because I think, like, if I can be real honest, I spend way too much time watching TV, listening to podcasts,
Have you
music.
seen Justified? I've been watching
Dude,
Justified.
I love Justified.
I've been watching
so we just got Amazon
3
Prime.
episodes. I know.
And
like,
I just
a day.
it's like
so
binge
good. I'm sorry,
watching.
you were
Yeah.
about culpability. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Raylan is like
Dude,
modern day
love-
cowboy.
But dude, Boyd is who like I totally.
Boyd
feel
Crowder
like
is the
I
most
channel.
fascinating character like in TV and so long.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really hard not to root for him.
I know anybody's
What
both
were we
a
talking
thief
about?
and a cult leader. Culpability.
Yeah.
In the laziness of our
Yeah.
spiritual lives.
Anything to that?
So what I think you were saying was, aren't we sort of living lives of
Noise.
noise, boredom, distraction, consumerism,
Yeah.
commuterism, self-indulgence? To your point, and we're so busy feeding our senses. What room is there for God to feed our senses?
To hear any kind of a still small voice.
Right. And yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Those who really cultivated that lifestyle, like the mystics of the Middle Ages, the extent that they would go to for a whisper is really profound. Mm-hmm. And I've never lived like that. And to your point, I have guilt about the book Aloof, even though I think I'm proud of the book on one level. On another level, I'm afraid that I've cast God in a way, or that I've cast the Christian experience in a way that is going to actually harm people. That's one of the dangers of being a purveyor of ideas, especially when you risk around ideas. So,
In that, you mean you have some kind of like the apprehensions that you're describing, in that you're afraid that people will say, well, see, God's not speaking anyway, so I don't have to try to listen. Is that what you mean?
or they'll just get through the first half of the book and they'll sort of be left with this, yeah, it is all bullshit kind of thing. And they'll walk away because you have to read the last quarter or last third of the book to get sort of the restructuring of a theology of God.
Yeah.
Where I think there's some hope there. I hope there's hope there. And, you know, people who are looking for reasons to reject religion will find them. And they can find it in the pages of my books.
So why do you think God is not more obvious?
It's a great question. That is the question. And the subtitle of the book was carefully crafted, Figuring Out Life with a God Who Hides. It's not explaining why God hides. The book is not explaining why God hides. The book is, for my 70, 80 years on this planet, I have to deal with this thing. And hopefully I'm dealing with it actively, not passively. Hopefully I am engaged in the question and trying to pursue the concept of being fully human. And being fully human is impossible without God. Hopefully I'm engaging that concept through my life. And I just totally lost my train of thought.
Why is not more obvious? That was the original question.
But so why? I mean, theologians bat this thing around. I mean, God is eternally creative and yet seems to withhold that creativity in the area of communication. And I'm sure there's something in there about coercion. What happens in Isaiah 6 is a very coercive scene. It's a very, I don't think Isaiah had a lot of options in that moment. And on one of the Off the Highway episodes, Paul Young, I asked him the question, and Paul talked about God will do as much as God can do without violating our freedom, our autonomy as beings. And that's a trick for the divine, because anything the divine does is by definition divine. That has the ability to coerce. And so I'm just assume that God's good at what God's doing.
Yeah. I think a lot of people who didn't grow up in church, and I hear like people arguing for atheism say, if there's a God, why is there not just why isn't he personified somewhere? Why can we just go up and walk up and talk to him? Why isn't there a burning bush that we can all visit and speak to him? And I think those of us in church have just kind of taken for granted for a long time that just God doesn't work that way. And when you start thinking logically, you kind of have to ask, well, I guess he could have done that. Why not? It's a good question. It's a really fair question. And I think we kind of lean on the role of faith. We say, well, because there's got to be faith. God wants us to have faith. But, even that, it's in a way that's kind of thin. I heard Dallas Willard say one time that, and this is my paraphrase, that God is not more obvious because if we want to deny him, if we don't want to sign on to something bigger than ourselves and we just want it to be about us, God wants to give us the ability to do that. So if God were undeniable, if God were in the flesh and there was no way to deny him, we would have no ability to do that. We would have to say, okay, fine, there's a God, there's something bigger. But God wants to give us the ability to say, if we want to make it about ourselves, we can make it about ourselves.
Here's another angle on it this is fresh thought.
Go for it.
I am not a universalist. Go to Off the Highway, watch Paul Young discussing universalism.
Reference.
I am not a universalist, but I hope for universalism. I pray that universalism is true.
Hope we're all there on the other side.
I'm not sure you can be a New Testament Christian and not hope that everybody is with God and desires God. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I'm not sure you can be a New Testament Christian and not actually ask God to sacrifice yourself and send yourself to hell on behalf of those that you love. That is New Testament Christianity. And sorry, I know but people who revel in other people going to hell,
sure,
I want to run them over with my car. It is so angering to me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But we were discussing something else, the fresh thought. Mm-hmm. So part of my theology part of my hope is that the grave is not the end of the salvation story, that the extension of God's hand to people does not end at the grave. This is part of my hope. The 2,000-year-old tradition that Jesus went and preached in hell during the time between Good Friday and Easter. This concept that God is ever pursuing us. Maybe God keeps God's distance, so we have an excuse to say, it wasn't obvious. God go, you're right. I could have been more obvious. Let me be obvious now. Do you want me?
Some plausible deniability there.
Yeah. So God can go, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
There's a handful of my children I was really obvious with for very specific reasons, but you I wasn't. So let's do obvious now. You want me or don't you? It's your call. The door to hell opens from the outside.
You tell a really beautiful story that I wish happened more often about your friend Molly.
Oh, yeah.
Who did hear from God. Can you tell us the story?
Oh, yeah. Molly is awesome. I adore Molly. We met 3 years ago. And she's a older than average college student. And we're actually casting from Warner Pacific College, where she was going to college. And Molly's covered in tattoos. She has a romantic relationship with the color black. She's the girlfriend of a guy in a bike club. She's awesome. She's the sort of person who would probably never show up to most churches. And she's having this terrible day. Well, so what happens is she calls me. She says, we need to get coffee. I need to talk to you about something. I said, okay. And we go out to coffee. She says, okay, I have to tell you a story, and you just have to listen to me, okay? And just believe me, okay? And I was like, all right. She goes, okay, so 2 weeks ago, I'm driving home. I'm really pissed. I'm in a really bad place. I'm crying. I'm screaming. I'm broke. And I pull off. I'm in a Safeway parking lot. I'm doing my best to remember the story, but I'm in a Safeway parking lot. I'm sitting there in my car, and I'm screaming, and I'm yelling. I'm so upset. I'm just crying, sobbing in the driver's seat. She says, and all of a sudden, there's this voice inside my car. And she looks at me, and she says, you just have to believe me that it was God. I don't know how I know it, but it was. So we've talked about spirituality dozens of times. And she's just basically, the universe is her faith.
She's open.
Yeah, she's just wide open. Would never assign God personhood, let alone a name, right? She goes, you just have to believe me. I don't know how I know, but I just know. And we're sitting there and we get to talking for a while, and we sort of talked back and forth. And after a while, my heart was really sort of eased, and I was really comforted by it. And the anxiety was gone, and there was just a real sense that I was loved and I was cared for in this moment. And then she says, and you have to know, and I don't know how I know this, but the voice's name was Jesus. I just know it was Jesus. And I was like, wow, that's great. And she's like, yeah. And then she's like, well, God, you're really great. Jesus, really appreciate that you would spend some time with me on this really, really crappy day. And there's a lot of cursing when she tells the story. And then she says, now, my intention is sort of to love you and follow you because you've been so kind to me today. But I need you to know I need a favor from you. And she says, God asked what? And she said, it's getting to the end of the month and my bank account's empty and I can't feed my kid. I need a job. I'm not looking for a handout, God. Just need a job. You know I work hard, she says. And so she and God sort of wrap up their conversation, and she turns the key and she drives home. It's like a few hours. She's sitting on the front porch of a neighbor's house, just sitting, shooting the poop there on the front porch. This lady walks up and stands on the front steps. They get to chatting for a minute, just chatting away. And then the lady looks to Molly and says, any chance you know how to cook? You've been a cook. She's like, yeah. She's like, well, I own Jeannie's Cafe and we're really in bad straits. We really need a cook and somebody who can start right away. Is there any chance you could start? She's like, yeah, I can start right away. I actually need work. She's like, fantastic. Come down tomorrow and we'll get started, whatever. And she says to me, so God got me a job. So I'm in. I'm in with Jesus now. And that was sort of the conversation. And then just to continue the story, this part's not in the book. The reason she wanted to get together is from that, she went to sort of a Christian counselor to talk it through because she didn't know what to do because she'd never been to church. She didn't know what was next.
Yeah.
And so pastor, Christian counselor, something. So she goes and sits down and she tells the story just the way she told it to me, to this counselor. And the counselor just sat there and told her, no, it doesn't work that way.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't work.
It didn't happen.
Yeah. What you need to do is you don't understand God. So you need to not tell that story. We need to get you to do these other things.
Yeah.
And then she's like, no, I do. I think I understand God. I got these ideas about God. And she explained it. He's like, no, those things aren't true, what you think. You need to believe other things. And she's like, so I just need somebody to talk to. And I was like, Molly, I wasn't there to hear what that guy said, but you need to know you are on the path. You are immersed in truth and beauty. Like you are on the path. I'm not saying whether all your ideas are right or wrong. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're asking the questions. And I think God is so tickled with you right now, what's going on. And it's just really, it's both a beautiful story and a painful story about religion.
Yeah. The funny thing to me about that is that it seems like the guy who says, no, God doesn't talk to you like that is probably also the same guy who gets mad at you for saying God doesn't talk to me like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For writing aloof. Don't say that God can't talk to you, but if he talked to you, it didn't happen.
Right.
Like the same guy. You tell another beautiful story, and this is the last question I'll ask, but about the Sons of Thunder, which sounds like a motorcycle gang. You know what I'm talking about?
The God is Black?
So, right, yeah.
The God is Black article.
Yeah.
Yeah, risky article, or chapter.
Chapter, yeah. Briefly describe that, and I just want to know what, to you, like how did God reveal himself in that situation?
I don't know if I can do that. That chapter was so hard to write.
Well, what was the purpose of adding that chapter in this book?
Okay, so for a decade, I've been a part of a multiracial community, been submitted to African Americans, Native Americans, and a smattering of others.
It sounds like some ways that you describe it in the book, like it sounds a lot like Fight Club. Is it?
It's been called Fight Club.
Okay.
It's been called Fight Club.
Okay.
It's like Fight Club meets 12-step meets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, meets, Bible study. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really, it's sort of that whole thing. And they've been meeting for 25 years. I've only been meeting with them for 10. These guys are my best friends. I've never in my life sat in a room where I'm the 8th largest human in the room. There's at least 7 people bigger than me, like significantly bigger than me.
Because you're not a small guy.
And No, I mean, I'm 6'3", 200, I'm a decent sized dude. And I'm like the sixth largest personality in the room. Like there's just people who can bury me. Like rhetorically, just the size and drama who they are. We sit in this big circle. Sometimes there's 30 of us, 40 of us, and we just talk and you can say anything. And at first I was super resistant. My middle class white upbringing partnered with my addiction to being enlightened, my belief that I'm enlightened. That's one of my core wounds is I want people to think that I'm enlightened. It's like I project that in the world. So the first 6 months to a year I was there, I was just trying to show them that I was the one enlightened white guy in the room. And it was horrible. It was they beat it out of me in the most fantastically brotherly way. And then I submitted to God. And then God told me to submit to them, specifically the African Americans, particularly, and the Native American guys too. I want you to submit to these guys. You're not allowed to keep. So I keep score. I figure people out. On the Enneagram, I'm an 8. And Richard Rohr says 8s can smell weakness. And so I can totally smell weakness. And I keep everybody's weakness so I know how to get to them if I need to. And God said, you have to burn the book you're keeping on this group. You just have to submit. And God started to really speak to me through these black voices. And like it or not, we hear God in whatever culture we come from. Like when we imagine what God sounds like, or even when we actually hear God, inevitably, it is whatever culture you're from. And when you're a man, it's usually a male from whatever culture you're from. So it's basically a self-serving, self-loving experience to hear God's voice, right? And so to have this experience where suddenly I'm hearing God with a very different voice. It had never happened to me before. Even when I lived overseas, lived in the Muslim world, I still always heard God in a white voice. I didn't even know it.
Sure. It's a default.
And that transformation just opened up ways of hearing God. And if we're only listening to people who look like us, sound like us, vote like us, read like us, worship like us, spend like us, drive like us, if we only are receiving from people who are just like us, it's an insidious form of self-love, and inevitably, they're going to have all the same blind spots that I have. So what do they really have to offer me?
Yeah. Just affirm how awesome you are.
Yeah. I mean, that's it.
Right.
Every time we sit around and we talk, it's a big oh, we're right again. Good job. High five.
Pat each other on the back.
Circle. And then I sit in a room where they think the way that I think is absolute garbage often. Yeah. And they tell me with fervor. And what a beautiful experience. So this idea that God is black, for me to hear God, it was necessary for me to hear God in another voice, and through my brothers and my uncles in this group who have adopted me. So that's some of the concept.
Well, Tony, how's the third time? Third time.
It was life-changing. I wish you guys could be here.
All right, you oversold it.
The roof opened up and the Shekinah glory shone down upon us. And a dove descended and lit on your shoulder.
And Aloof is available at wherever books are sold.
Wherever books are sold.
Pals and the like. I have to say, so, I've for years read your books now, and, what's his name?
Don
Miller. My mind just went blank. Yours and Don's books, and you have these whole cast of characters that live in Portland. So Portland is just like a magical place. And here we are. It's like being at the real Sesame Street,
It is. It's just like Sesame Street.
Yeah, just like that. Thanks for being on the show, Tony. Thanks for being a friend.
It's good to be here.
Go out, buy Aloof.
Go buy Aloof. Watch Off the Highway.
Off the Highway. And
at
also
TonyKriz.com.
Yeah, and Justified as well.
Oh.
Thanks for joining me for another episode of Seminary Dropout. Remember, you can find all the show notes for this show and all shows at ShaneBlackshear.com. Thanks to those that left ratings and reviews on iTunes this week. Remember, that keeps the show front and center. Also, remember, you can find me on Twitter at @BeardOnABike. That's @BeardOnABike. Also, I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/ShaneBlackshear123. And remember that Seminary Dropout is listener supported. You can visit supportseminarydropout.com and press Become a Patron. Remember, this music you're listening to right now is by D.L. Rossi. You can find him online on iTunes and at dlrossi.com. All right, thanks again for joining me for another episode of Seminary Dropout. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Love you. Take care.